guys, we're continuing our chat discussion about fletching. Now fletching is a generic term for putting a stabilising medium on your arrows. Whether you call them fletchers, which are feathered, or vanes, which are plastic, it is still fletching. You are fletching your arrows. Let's get that point straight. The next thing is why choose one over the other. Right, well at the end of the day it comes down to each one's got its pros and cons. Traditionally you would say fletching, arrows with feathers. More modern stuff you would use plastic. Now there are people who will say that traditional has to be feather, modern has to be plastic. Not so. It doesn't matter. There are hunters using ultra modern compound recurve like the Unitas, things like that, who are still using feather fletched arrows. There are people using traditional recurve bows for hunting who are using plastic veined arrows. It comes down to what you need. Right, that said, I am unashamedly a feather guy. I love feathers. They are forgiving, they are natural, I just think they look better. That's my own personal point of view. However, plastic vanes are durable, consistent, and easy to fit and replace. So they both have their benefits. Now we'll start with the plastic vanes. They're durable up until they take damage. Once they take damage, that's it, they're done. But until they take some damage, they are quite durable, as long as you get them straight out of the box. That's another problem with them, is they do tend to follow, they're pressure sensitive, so if they're packed badly in a box where the vanes are squashed or pushed over to one side, if they're left like that for long enough, they will eventually stay like that. My son bought a dozen earlier on this year. When we unpacked them, they'd been packed in so tightly that there wasn't, I think there was one arrow out of the dozen that didn't have a bent fletch. Every other arrow had at least one bent fletch. Some of them, all three were bent. And a good 50% of them we couldn't straighten back out, no matter what we did. Even in submerging them in boiling water, hot air guns, all sorts of stuff. Even to the point where we were actually starting to soften the plastic to such an extent that we were leaving fingerprints in the veins. They wouldn't straighten. So no, I have a feeling that they were packed in that box that they came in, and they'd been in there for a long time in some other country with various weather conditions, and so they've become fixed. However, having said that, the cheapest arrows that I found on Amazon, which I'm doing a review of at the moment, I've already done one video about them, they came out of the packaging, not one single bent vein in the entire dozen. They were perfect. So it just shows, it's a lot of the time, you pay your luck and takes your choice. So they're durable up to a point. Consistent. You can weigh them to your heart's content, and they'll be never more than a fraction of a grain out. So you know, if you buy a batch, and as long as they come from the same batch, they're going to be virtually identical. They're easy to fit. Literally, stick some double-sided sticky tape along the bottom edge, and you can buy it to match the exact width of the root of the vein, and you stick it on. Job done, dusted. You don't need to serve or protect the front leading edge of the vein, because it's not going to bite into the back of your hand, because it's soft rubberized plastic. They are a good deal more resilient to being struck by other arrows downrange as well, because they do tend to be, they move a lot better side to side than back to front, so they tend to get pushed out of the way rather than getting damaged. However, as we said, once they do take damage, that's it, they're knackered. You can't do anything else with them, and they tend to damage in such a way as to affect the flight of the arrow, so you've got to replace them. But that's where the benefit is. I've actually seen at competitions, archers checking the vein after each set, and I've seen guys just pull a penknife out, rip the vein off, take a pre-prepared vein out of their pouch that's got double-sided sticky tape already on the vein, peel the tape, stick it on, they're good to go. It takes about 30 seconds. So even in the middle, where you're going from set to set to set, while you're waiting to shoot, you've got time enough to change the vein on an arrow. You have to practice a little bit and make sure you line it all up properly, but at least you're not going to be out of the competition because you've got damaged equipment. So I've seen people actually do that. It's fairly rare, but a lot of professional, high-level competitive archers will have spare veins ready to go in their pouch just in case. That's one of the benefits, and I think that's one of the best benefits of the plastic veins. Now, if you have it's consistency, durability. The other benefit as well is that they're cheap and readily available, and becoming more so. I visited my usual retailer not so long ago. When I first started going there, he had a wall full that was about 6 foot high and about 18 foot long, with 4-inch square drawers in the wall, all like just row after row after row, and they were all feather fletchings. Hundreds of different designs, styles, colours, lengths, the lot. If you could imagine a length of feather fletching from 6 or 7 inches down to 1.5 inches, that were an inch and a half high down to half an inch high, in any colour combination, and even patterned with tiger stripes and leopard skin, all sorts of different patterns. If you could imagine it, chances are you would find it in one of those drawers. I went in there recently, and those drawers are gone. And all you have now is you have one of those spinning racks that has about 10 rows high and about 20 rows all the way around, and they're all pre-packaged. You can virtually no longer buy separate single fletchings. However, you can with plastic veins. He hasn't got nowhere near as many as he had of the fletchings, but there's a good 120 different choices of colour and length. He's got quite a few, and you can go in there and you can buy the veins separately or as a package in the same way as you used to be able to buy fletchings. You can't do that with fletching not as much as you used to do. No doubt there are retailers out there where you can still buy a single fletch, but they are becoming more and more uncommon. So there's the main benefit of plastic veins now is they are so common, they are so easily obtainable, much more so than fletchings now, I think, in my own personal experience. So durability, consistency, availability, and those are the three main things. Now we come to fletchings. Now fletchings, they're not as durable, but they will sustain damage a good deal more than a plastic vein will. Just purely simply because of the way they are made. If a fletch gets hit by another arrow, it may damage, it may bend, it may even snap some of the individual strands or the fronds of the feather. But that doesn't make a great deal of difference because, and I don't know whether you know this, but this is where the inspiration for Velcro came from, each of those individual little fronds of feather will stick together. So if one's damaged enough, you can actually cut it out, the feather will still knit up, and you'll still have a complete fletch. Alternatively, if it's not too badly damaged, you can actually manipulate it so that it's locked in place at the front and locked in place by the one behind it. So even a damaged frond, damaged strand of fletching can be made to work. So in that point of view, they are actually quite resilient, which is a good thing, I think. It means you're not so worried about damage to the fletching. Even in a competitive situation, generally speaking, you run your fingers along the fletch and anything's been knocked out of shape will go back into shape. Yes, at some point or other you will have to repair a damaged fletch that becomes too damaged. But that doesn't. But you're not necessarily going to have to do it in the field, in the middle of a competition. You can just, and you're good to go. Consistency, not so much. With modern produced fletchings, yes, they are cut very consistently, and generally speaking, in terms of shape and length and things like that, they are very consistent. However, you've got no idea what batch a particular feather might come from, and there might be minute variations in weight, in thickness. So there can be lots of different variations, so they're not as consistent as plastic veins. It's just a fact of life. Availability, as I've already discussed, is becoming less and less available. I can literally 10 years ago, you could go in and you could pick one of that colour, one of that colour, one of that colour. You could colour match, you could do all sorts. I've got a nice set of arrows I made years ago, which have got two purple marbled fletchings and one orange marbled fletching, and that's a cock feather, and they look fantastic. But you can't get those feathers anymore, you can't get those fletches anymore. The only other way around that is to cut them yourself, but again, you're adding complexity to the fletching. So they're not as easily repaired, they're not as easily replaced. In terms of fitting them, there's preparation you have to do, whereas with plastic veins, take them out of the packet, put a tape, stick them on, done. If you want a good job with fletchings, you have to shave away or sand away the pith on the underside of the quill itself, just to get them to sit flat. So you've got to prepare them, you've got to, and things like that. Once they're fitted, you've really got to protect your hand by putting some serving round, or as I've started doing, putting some heat shrink around the front edge of the quill, just to stop it going through the back of your hand. So that's a problem you may want to take into account as well. And that's basically what it all comes down to, is does it fit with your personal style of shooting? Will it fit in with your lifestyle, as in the amount of time you've got available for making, maintaining, repairing the equipment? If you only have an hour spare each week before a shooting session, you may need to think seriously about plastic veins. Even if you're shooting a wooden shaft, you still might have to think about plastic veins, because the maintenance of feather fletchings takes a lot longer. I think they're a lot nicer to shoot, but they do take longer to maintain and make. Now, generally speaking, that's about it in terms of feather selection. Decide what you want to use, decide whether it's going to suit the style of shooting you want to do, and is it going to suit your lifestyle. That's all it comes down to. If there's anybody telling you, oh, you can't use that on that, and you can't use that on that, tell them you get lost. I've got another video I'm going to put up soon where I have a proper little rant about this. But I'm not going to do it. I'm going to chill. I'm just going to relax. I'm not going to do it here. I'm not going to get into that here. But at the end of the day, your equipment should match what you want to do. If you want to shoot all singing, all dancing, modern target, you are probably going to be using plastic veins. If you want to shoot ultra traditional, you're probably going to be shooting feather fletchings. But there's absolutely no reason why you can't swap the things around. I shoot target archery with feather fletchings. I know guys who do field target with plastic veins. At the end of the day, it's down to you. Anyway, so that's just my thoughts on the subject. Look out for the other rant video later on. I'm still deciding whether I'm going to put it up or not. But anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Hope you found it interesting. Stay safe, keep slinging the sticks, and we'll talk again soon. Cheers, guys.